Yes, yes, yes. Melanated family. How is everybody doing today, man? This is your brother Harrison. You know I'm back. You know we got to do it again. This is a brand new episode of the Melanated Combo podcast. Brand new week, brand new guest. And like I said, man, I'm going to keep bringing y'all these heaters. Keep bringing the guests with the information. Keep bringing you the inspiration. You feel me? We do Black History 365 days a year around here, man. You know what I mean? I get excited because having these conversations is what it's all about. So today on the Melody the Combo podcast, I have a young brother, right? Who's an
Yes.
attorney, right? A young brother who came from Kansas, moved to L.A., moved to South Central, had to move to Detroit. We know how the urban communities in these environments can produce certain types of individuals. So we got to speak to this brother about how he became a lawyer, right? How he became a lawyer coming out of all of these circumstances. What we also got to talk about is the brother wrote a book called The Audacity of Dope and Perseverance. Family, we gotta get into that title, The Audacity. Hear what I say now. If you from the hood like me, if you know how our neighborhoods give it up, think about that. The audacity of dope and perseverance. These two things can hit you pretty hard. You feel me? So we need to talk about them with the brother. So today on the show, we have the brother Ron Naulls. He wrote a remarkable book about his story, dispelling the notion that just because you come from a certain environment, you have to coalesce with that environment. He gonna break it down for us today. So on the Melanated Combo podcast today, family, please welcome none other than the brother Ron Naulls. How you doing today, Ron?
Man, I'm blessed. Pleasure to be here. Another day in paradise, Harrison. Thank you so much, man. Thank you for having me.
Definitely. So first thing I wanted to touch on, just looking at your story a little bit, Ron, it looks like as a kid you had to move around a little bit, right? So was it Detroit, Kansas City, and LA?
Great question, Harrison. So I was born and raised in Kansas.
Hmm.
Was military kid. So right outside of a small town called Junction City, Kansas. It's right kind of in the center of Kansas, in our heartland of our country, but right next to a military base in Fort Riley. And that's where my mother, who's my grandfather was in the military, was stationed into Fort Riley, and my father, his dad, my grandfather, was also stationed in Fort Riley, and so that's where my parents met on that military base, and right next to Fort Riley, and here I am. That's how I came to be. But the move from Kansas to these other areas of the country, that's where we get all into the nitty gritty. But born and raised in Kansas, I'm a Midwest boy. And yeah, I'm proud to say that I was born and raised in Kansas. Definitely. A lot of Black people don't want to claim Kansas, but yeah, I will. I'm very proud about where I was born and raised.
Now, in that part of Kansas, was there a lot of Black people? Like, what was the demographics where you lived?
Great question. And with the military, that's what brought Black folks to the area. Otherwise, it's mainly a Caucasian white majority. Still, African Americans are the minority in Kansas, but in Fort Riley, because of that military base, there's a concentration of Black folks that live in and around the military base.
Got it. Okay. Now, how old were you when you moved to like the Detroits in the LA or whatever?
Yeah. So first, after my mom and dad divorced, so the book kind of goes into that, the audacity of dope, with dope being like the Achilles heel of our family, if you will. So mom and father got a divorce. Crack cocaine. This was in the 80s. That's when the crack epidemic was in full force, if you will. And mom's was moving around different areas in Kansas, and decided that she couldn't necessarily take care of me as a son as I got into my teenage years. And that's where she made the decision. Well, first, I said I wanted to live with my dad, as a young Black, teenager. It's you single mom. You kind of feel like you're a man of the house, and mom's is tripping, if you will. And just like I want to go stay with my dad. I never been with him for a number of years. He's from Detroit, so mom's threw me on the Greyhound bus, and I traveled all the way from Kansas to Michigan and Detroit. But before that, I guess I could kind of highlight family lives in California because my grandfather was stationed in Santa Ana. And so military bases out here in California. So the family moved into California for some time. We didn't settle in Orange County. We settled in South Central L.A. So going from Kansas to South Central LA was, a culture shock, very eye-opening experience, going from never seeing, graffiti or gangs, only seeing it on TV to seeing it in full force because we were right off of Crenshaw and Martin Luther King Boulevard. But long story short, it was from there when my mom contacted my dad because I was kind of getting involved in the streets and, trying to find myself as a youth. And that's when I said, I want to go, stay with my pops. I don't really like it here. And so moved out to Detroit. And man, another eye-opening experience when I moved from Kansas to California and then to Detroit, Michigan.
Because I bet Detroit had a lot of similar energy as like a South Central, just as far as how the Black people lived amongst each other. A lot of the same stuff, right?
It's like taking the removing the palm trees and the concrete in South Central LA and replace it with dilapidated houses and empty lots, if you will. But all the same thing, and add another season, winter, because in SoCal we don't have that winter. So take all that and transport it to Detroit. Yeah, Harrison, you hit the nail right on the head. It was similar to South Central, only that no palm trees, no concrete jungles, what they call it in South Central, and there's still some gang activity in Detroit, but also you got the different weather patterns, what have you, but still that same blight, that same that poverty, and everyone's thinking you're a product of your environment.
Now, talk to me about this because in our community, we understand that, the single home rate is pretty high in our community. Of course, there's a lot of factors we can discuss that determine that, but it is what it is, right? And I'm a kid who was raised with just my mom in a certain type of neighborhood, and there's a certain energy that goes into that. Now, talk to me about living with your pops. Some of us don't have the experience of going from living mom and kids and everything to living with pops. What are some of the differences? Because we need to, men, this is my opinion, Ron, men need to realize how important they are in like the full household dynamic. So what are some of the differences you felt, even if being in the hood in Detroit? Like, what are some of the differences you felt just living with your pops?
Wow. Excellent question, Harrison. So for one of the things was that I wasn't connected to the city. My pops had lived, he was born and raised in Detroit. I moved to the east side of Detroit. Now, that's one of the roughest areas of Detroit. So moving there and not knowing anyone, but it was my family that was established in Detroit. So having those family ties is, who's your people? Who do you stay with? Oh, you with the Chappelles, or oh, you with Big Mama? Everyone. There's always a Big Mama on the block. So my being connected, with my family, helped me kind of navigate the east side Detroit. However, back then, I should say, my family didn't have the what do you call it? The wherewithal, or they I'll be blunt. They weren't recognized as, positive influences of the community, if you will. There's lots of different influences in my family. And so when the last name was associated with me, it was like, oh, well, you must do that, or you must be into that. And
I know what you mean.
No, I'm not into that, and I don't do that. But because of my last name, I was associated. But not having my family's connections would have made it a little bit more difficult to navigate in the hood, because when you don't have those family ties in the hood, and I'm being intentional by saying the hood, not the neighborhood, the hood. Without having those ties, and it's like they either shun you, or you get picked on, you get bullied, or you get these certain labels. But having that family connection, that family tie, really helped me to navigate. And actually, because I didn't know my father, after my mom and dad divorced when I was 6, so I was still young, and I didn't really know that side of my family. So that also gave me the opportunity to really get to know my aunts and uncles, my grandfather, and even my father. And so, without that, I think that was so important, in that, I, being raised by a single mom, going and being with my dad, I was able to, identify as a teenager for the first time, with my dad's side of the family, and how my family was connected and evolved in the city of Detroit.
You know what? While you was talking, I was thinking, Ron, how important that is. Like, sometimes as young people, because we come from single parent homes at times, you will hear about your dad, right? And how the kind of dude he was, how his people operated. I don't think it's nothing like being put in it that way. So you can get a clear glimpse, for better or for worse, where you come from. I think sometimes a lot of the young men I've been around struggle with identity crisis, strictly because, for good or bad, mom or dad, they never been like enthralled in that side of the family. So sometimes as a young dude, you could be walking around with a certain temperament. Let's say you're really funny. Let's say you're really witty, and people will be saying that's funny. That's how you are. Nobody will ever say, hey, you just like your Uncle Johnny. On your daddy's side, if you ever been around them, you would see the environment and say, okay, this is where I come from. Sometimes it can create like a sense of normalcy, don't you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, even like going to my grandmother's house, that I never met my grandmother before, on my dad's side, and just knowing like this is the house that my dad and my dad's sisters and brothers were raised in. And to know that the Ford and GM, like, we got generations of people that work in these automobile factories that I wasn't even aware of. And so there's this, this, like, our family has actually made some contributions to this country. And being raised as, with my mom only, I didn't know about any of that side of my family or those connections. And so I never heard those types of things from my mom, except when I was younger. It was the negative associations with how I acted like my dad, or I was going to be like my dad, or you're going to end up just like your dad. And so, as a young child, you're trying to escape all of those labels, and you don't want to be associated with things that your own mother is labeling, one half side of you as bad. And so that was something that I always tried to disassociate or run away from. But when it came to me actually living with my dad, that's when I actually embraced it, and found some areas of, oh wow, where my mom used to say, you're going to be like this, or you're going to end up like that. I would only focus on those negative things, but it allowed me to actually realize and learn about some of the things that, where I came from and how I'm connected, with my family, even though my mom and dad divorced. It gave me a sense of, identity.
Definitely. No, I completely understand. And that's why fathers need to realize, for whatever reason, if you're in a position where you can't be around your kids, or you're not around your kids, unfortunately, sometimes the mother, other family members, they will create a narrative about who you are, and the child has nothing to compare it to. That's why I always tell fathers, Ryan, you got to be in your kid's life. Now, sometimes you may be in a position where you can't help as much financially, or you may be going through things. You have to let your presence be known, because really a kid is going to discover who you are. Like, a parent can call you whatever, but once they're around you, once they become of age, they'll try to reach out. You'll try to reach out. They'll get a clear picture if you're a good dude or a bad dude. but you gotta be involved to have a say so on how that turns out. So that's important, Ron. And a lot of us go through what you went through, bro. Now, something else I want to touch on real quick. So, talk to me about like growing up in these environments, right? And going through all these things. See, I wanted to paint the picture that you just like all of us, bro. You are a
Mhm.
lawyer now, brother, but the fight you had to go through to get there, the neighborhood you same as a lot of us. So this isn't unattainable to our young men. But talk
Mhm.
to me about why a lawyer. Like you could have, I know in Detroit and LA, they was talking about basketball, they was talking about football. You seen the gang banging. What made you say, you
Yes.
know what? I'm gonna get into law.
So I was raided by the feds, Harrison.
Mm,
And when I was raided by the feds, they took everything. They put our kids in child protective services. They arrested my wife for child endangerment. And I was facing 40 years of federal prison for RICO, for manufacturing, distribution, and maintaining a drug establishment. And this was all for medical marijuana, which is legal in California. Now, I sought, advice to open up a legal medical marijuana dispensary here in Southern California back in 2006. In 2007 is when I was raided, and all these events that I just described went down.
mm,
Now, we had an attorney, but I couldn't afford it because all of our funds were confiscated and forfeited, if you will.
Wait, so
And
just real quick, Juan, just real quick. So you guys, just to paint the, you guys opened a dispensary like the ones we see now that be damn near in every corner. You guys opened a dispensary and they felt the need to come raid y'all based on something they felt you did incorrectly.
so, what I was told by my attorneys, and I'm quoting them, in that we were, I was a minority operating a dispensary when all other minorities that operated dispensaries were either in Oakland or Los Angeles.
Hmm.
Now, I was in a suburban area of Southern California in Riverside. It's very, like a very conservative area of Southern California. And so I was told that essentially I was rated because of the fact that my skin is my sin, essentially, is what
Hmm.
my attorney said, because other black dispensary operators back then in LA and Oakland were not touched. And so, long story short, I was assigned a public defender. And the public defender essentially said, you should just plead guilty because they have everything on you. And pleading guilty would have given me a minimum of 10 years out of the 40. And so I said, you know what? My kids were 5, 3, and 1 at the time, facing 40 years in prison, losing everything. I'm just going to figure out how to fight for myself and win my own freedom as opposed to putting my hands in the public defenders, leaving it all to them. And so to me, it was, either I fight for my own freedom or I'm going to prison. I'm not going to take a public defender telling me to take a plea and go away for 10 years of my life when I followed the law and did everything I was supposed to do. And
Hmm.
so that pressure, Harrison, and not having any funds, I found a law school that would allow me to attend, even though I was under indictment. Now, a lot of law schools wouldn't even accept my application, but really, I just wanted to go in order to figure out how to win and defend myself because I couldn't afford representation.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. This is damn, Ron. So this is amazing. Wait a minute. So you open a dispensary. They hit you with these racist statues based on the fact that this is something newer. Most black people aren't opening up dispensaries in this area. And you say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'm fighting for my life. I can't afford an attorney, so I'm going to become one.
It wasn't necessarily I was going to become one, Harrison. It was really let me go to law school to figure out how to navigate this whole
Mm.
like court because I had to do motions and I didn't know what a motion was and I had to write a motion because they wanted to suppress any evidence that I opened the dispensary legally under California state law, and this was a federal case, and so they wanted to suppress all of the legalities that we followed under state law. I didn't know how to write a motion. the public defender wouldn't write a motion for me. And so I was like, well, let me go to law school to learn how to write some motions, do some discovery, figure out what I need to do in order to secure my freedom. So it really wasn't to become a lawyer, Harrison, because I was under indictment. So I was like, there's no way I'm going to become an attorney. I'm a felon. I'm under indictment. This is to fight for my freedom.
Got it. Okay. So as far as, because that's very interesting to me. Did you finish law school, or how far did you go in that process?
So long story short, in 2010, so 3 years after I was indicted, the Obama administration came into in 2008. And once the Obama administration came in, there was a memo the Department of Justice published that said any raids for dispensary operators in states where marijuana is legal, if you follow the law, we're not going to prosecute. This was 3 years after I was indicted. So in 2010, the Department of Justice gave me a plea. Now, they weren't going to let me off, scot-free. It's like, we raided you. We had the DEA, the FBI, the IRS, criminal investigation unit, and all these man hours to throw Ron away for 40 years. We're not just going to throw away that investigative work and dismiss it. We got to get a pound of flesh. And what did they get me on? Taxes for filing a false tax return, because a medical marijuana dispensary is not legal under federal law. So any tax deductions that we took for the business were not legal. So that was the plea agreement that the Department of Justice, gave me, if you will, in dismissal of all of the other charges that I was facing 40 years for. So if you sign this plea, and you'll just be liable for the taxes. We'll dismiss all those other charges for 40 years. And so that's what I got in 2010. Wasn't finished with law school, Harrison. I was only in school for a year once I signed my plea agreement. And so me and the wife were like, well, I've already finished a year of law school and escaped, 40 years of federal, bid time by the chin of my chinny chin skin, or whatever you want to call it. And I've already finished 1 year of law school. If I do 3 more years, I'll have a degree. So, I've never quit what I've started, if you will. And my kids at the time were watching me going to law school, Harrison. So it was like, I can't quit something and my kids watching me quit. I got to set an example, because I can't tell my kids not to quit something, but here I am quitting. So it really wasn't like I wanted to keep going to finish law school. It was like, I kind of have no choice with the kids watching me, and I've already knocked down 1 year. So let's do 3 more years part-time and I'll have a law degree and it'll be worth it. So I continued on. Got it.
Okay. So at this point, do you actually practice law, or did you damn, bro?
So I went through hell with the state bar, just to be, frank. But they denied me because I passed the bar exam here in California. It took me 2 times to pass the bar exam. I'm not afraid to admit that. A lot of my comrades in law school took it the first time and passed it. But taking that, passing the bar exam, there's this moral character process that you have to go through. And part of that, Harrison, was disclosing all of my, criminal past and things that I've done, including the medical marijuana dispensary, but also things that I've done in my youth. I was arrested as a youth when, as I discussed in my book. Just some other domestic violence things that I had gotten in my youth as well. I'll happily admit that I was the abused, not the abuser. Most people assume, black men are the most of the time the abuser, but you read the police reports; they're all public. I didn't do anything. But long story short, that's really what the Moral Character Committee went through as far as my background, and he denied me my law license back in 2016, and so I had to wait and go through therapy, and really just a whole assessment of my character at my individual character,
Mhm.
in order to get over the hump of becoming a licensed attorney. And by the grace of God, went through some therapy and went through some other, realizations as far as what is my purpose as an attorney.
Mhm.
Like what am I really trying to accomplish here?
Mhm.
And once I was honed in on my purpose and scope of being an attorney, I put my application again for moral character, and they gave me the green light and gave me my bar license in 2019.
Damn, Ron, that's a beautiful story, brother. So it seemed like it started with such strife and like confusion, anguish. I know you were upset when all that happened. You felt like it was a wrongdoing. Like for you facing 40 years for opening a dispensary when they're on every corner now. Like, to be frank, this is some bullshit, bro. But the fact that
Yes.
you came through that and now coming all the way through it to be an attorney on the other side, damn, Ron, that's damn near amazing, bro.
And that's why I wrote the book, Harrison, because that's a lot of people in our culture, a lot of black men, they become products of their environment, or they make choices that may set them back a few years, and then they come to the conclusion that this is it. I've already, my bed has been made, and that's
Mhm.
not the case. That is not the case. And so that's really the point of the book, is to the audacity of dope, and dope being that Achilles heel in many black families, especially during the 80s and the crack pandemic or endemic, or whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
Marijuana is another one that they say that's the gateway drug, and in our community, in our culture, there's all these things that say you smoke or you use marijuana, it'll lead to other harder things, if you will.
Mhm.
And I'm here to no, it doesn't. All of that is fake news,
Yep.
and that's why I wrote the book.
And I one of the biggest things that attracted me to your story, Ron, is the audacity. Let's break the title of that book down for everybody,
So it
brother.
was
The audacity of dope and perseverance. I
so
like that, man.
I had to do a play on our president. I say our president because we've only had one in our culture, and that's Obama.
Hmm.
He wrote the book, The Audacity of Hope. And so, looking at my situation and circumstances, the audacity of hope. Like, I hope, that I become an attorney, or I hope that I, get, above these hurdles and circumstances. That's the audacity. I like that title, and I'm like, well, our what I was dealing with growing up in my youth was cocaine and marijuana, and how that led our family into jail, or into prison, or into addiction. And it was like the audacity of dope and perseverance, in that even though dope is an Achilles heel in every form, whether it be alcohol, heroin, what they call
Hmm.
it in Detroit, heroin is what we call it out here in California.
Yes.
It all, is an Achilles heel in our culture,
Hmm.
in Black culture. But we can persevere, we can overcome. And that's where the title comes from, is the audacity of dope, and that it puts us down, but it's a spin on the book for Obama, The Audacity of Hope.
Hmm.
And also, Obama is a huge reason as to why I'm an attorney today,
Oh,
because of
because
that
of yeah.
memo. Yeah. Had Bush been as president for another 4 years, I would be doing a 40-year bid somewhere.
Damn.
So it was looking at that whole palette of, like, my situation, the title, Obama, and still coming out on top. Like, that's where that title comes from, Harrison. If that answers that
No,
question.
it definitely makes sense. It definitely makes sense because I think when I heard the title, some of the things that I thought about, of course, the audacity of what all of these drugs have done to our community, and to deny that they've played a large role in some of the dysfunctions in our family would be hypocritical. Like that would be
Yes.
like intellectually dishonest. You know what I mean? So I understand that, and perseverance is needed. Like it, people think that's why I wanted to have you on the show, bro. And I'm thinking in my mind, you're a young kid who, you know, decides to be a lawyer, and that's how you got to the position you are now. But the fact that so much like strife you had to go through, some of the things you had to go through to actually get to being an attorney, that's amazing, brother. And a lot of our young dudes can learn from that. You know what I mean? Because sometimes the inner city creates like this hopeless environment where many feel they can't come out of, and it's difficult. It's not easy for everybody. People
Yep.
always say to just pick yourself up by your bootstraps. That type of ideology, that's not easy. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And I think highlighting brothers like you make it more plausible, because a lot of our young dudes is looking at hip hop artists, they're looking at entertainers, they're judging what they can be by these individuals. But no, in actuality, Ron, like me and you both know, if you work hard, you can achieve anything you want. You know what I mean?
Life is a series of choices,
Mm-hmm.
Harrison. And as a young person, you don't know that life is a series of choices. That, you know what, I had to make a choice to go with the homies to do a lick. And I chose to go with the homies to do that lick. You know, I could have said no. I could have been, oh, you a punk, you a buster, you ain't
Mm-hmm.
down, you know. Um, it's life is a series of choices, and that's what I'm trying to teach in the book, in just in me, as with our community,
Mm-hmm.
that we all have choices that we make in life, and those choices affect our future.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm a big proponent of, I call it the 7 P's. Prior proper planning prevents piss poor performance.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
And a lot of things don't happen happenstance. You have to plan those things. You have to be intentional.
Yep.
And so I wasn't that way when I was young. I was, just kind of trying to figure out where I fit in. Get in where you fit in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if everyone's doing that, then I guess that's where I fit in. And that's, life is a series of choices. You can make a choice, to do something else, to persevere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. No, that's completely true, brother. And we need to, it's all about the narratives that's being pushed in, like the models of possibility. That's what I consider you. When I look at your story, to me, you're like a model of possibility. That this is obtainable if the right amount of energy and effort is put into it. And a lot of our young dudes just don't realize that. Now, talk to me a little bit about the book real quick, the Audacity of Dope and Perseverance. So in the book, are you speaking about just your childhood, going, being a military kid and everything you had to go through in that regard?
So it's it is an account. It's not an account of like facts and events. It's my own personal experience. So I'll go through growing up as a youth in the 80s, because I'm 42. I was born in 79. So, when 1980s hit, I mean, that was when I was in elementary in rural Kansas. And I go through, what I remember and what I see, as a youth growing up. And then, when we moved to Detroit, and I was a teenager, and what I saw as a teenager and dealt with, like peer pressure. That was the first time I smoked marijuana, was when I was in Detroit, and at somebody's at the homie's house, who was also single parents. And they worked. So in most urban communities, after school, no one's home. You go to other communities, you might have the homemaker, you might have someone that's always home. Well, on the east side of Detroit, in the early 90s, after I got out of school, all the people that I was hanging around with, that's why I say my own, personal experience, because someone else may say, well, that's not what happened in, when I was growing up in the 80s or in the 90s. Well, in east side Detroit, when school was out, no parents were home. We were all, what we call them, latchkey kids.
Mm-hmm.
We had the key around our neck, so you didn't lose it.
Mm-hmm.
And you open the door, you go into the empty house. But some of us would invite some of the homies over. Hey, my mom ain't gonna be home till 8 or 9. Let's go home and kick it. Go over there and kick it, and someone breaks out the herb. And peer pressure. And that's when Snoop, was drinking gin and juice, and the Chronic was hot.
Yep.
And so, you can't succumb and be, a biatch, if you will, excuse my French. You gotta be down. So I go into that in the book. And then in my early adulthood, I discuss events like the rise of the internet, because there was that digital divide between the urban community and folks that were able to have broadband internet. I remember when I first got dial-up, and other people in the community were like, "What? Oh, you a geek? Like
you using the internet?
You're using the internet? Like who does that? And then into my college years at Kansas University, I traveled all around the U.S. and ended back in Kansas my freshman year in college on a scholarship for. And I was running track and field, and described my experience in college as a young Black male in a mostly white college, and how that experience and trying to navigate. Do I join a fraternity, a Black fraternity? Because everyone on campus who was Black was part of the the Alphas or the Kappas fraternity. There was only 2 Black fraternities, and I was like, should I join a fraternity? Those kinds of experiences growing up that Black males don't really have exposure to if you have 2 parents in a home. So these were the kinds of things that from my own experience, that I described my in my youth and in my teen years, and growing up, getting married, how I met my wife, and how we wanted to raise our family. Spirituality, I was raised as a Buddhist. I didn't mention my mom,
Really?
she's of Japanese descent.
Oh wow! Wait. Okay. Wait. Okay. So you're Japanese descent, and your pops is Black.
My pops is Black.
Wait. So okay. Wait. Okay. Being, I come from a Black home, brother. So we Christians, you know what I mean? We heavy Christianity, heavy, Baptist, these type of things. Buddhists, talk to me about some of the differences, like being raised from that philosophy, from that standpoint.
Man,
give me, because it's different.
It is different.
Up to the sky, kind of, but they give it up a little bit differently.
Yes,
than Christians do. Talk to me about that experience. That's interesting.
Karma I still believe in karma. What goes around comes around. Hendoku Iyaku is changing poison into medicine, which is another Buddhist philosophy. I used to chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. I mean, my mom used to make me sit down for hours as punishment, chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo.
What does that mean again? What does that mean again?
I know Nam means devotion. That's all that I remember. Myoho Renge Kyo. We're going to have to leave that for another podcast, brother. But Nam means devotion.
Got it.
Wow. And when I met my wife, I was still a practicing Buddhist. I had a Gohonzon. I used to go to Soka Gakkai meetings on a monthly basis. And when me and my wife met, she's a Christian. She was the one that was, deep into the Bible, going to, Bible study. And, she was raised as the quintessential Black Baptist Christian. Screaming in the church and the guys sweating and, wiping the bro off. Like, that's the church that she was raised in. I was raised in that church. I was raised as a Buddhist. And I would be scared to let people know that I was a Buddhist because it wasn't the most popular religion. And here I am, a Black kid, and everyone else that's Black is Christian, yet I'm a Buddhist.
Wow.
So, but it was what was very fascinating to me about Buddhism was this whole push about world peace. As a kid, growing up and hearing about, Desert Storm. And then like Vietnam was still like remnants of hearing like Vietnam. But Desert Storm was really big when I was growing up as a Buddhist, and it was like world peace, world peace. You know, we're all chanting about world peace. So that was really big draw to me, you know, when it came to world peace. But when I would chant, I wouldn't feel anything. You know, I'd be chanting for hours and I wouldn't feel nothing. And I would have what we call benefits as a Buddhist, and I would share my benefits in Buddhist meetings. But it wasn't until after I met my wife that she, you know, tricked me to meet her at, you know, this place to meet her. And she gave me the address. I go and I show up and it's a church. She's like, you know, I really want you to go here. And so I go in and I met her.
Your volume went out, brother. I can't hear you. The brother's volume went out for a second, but imagine that. Like, have you guys ever even heard of that? Like a black family, like studying Buddhism. Like it's interesting. You know what I mean? Especially coming from an urban environment. I'm sure a lot of us could have benefited from some of them practices. Don't let me get started on Christianity. But yeah, you back, brother?
Yes, I'm back. So yes. But so the wife we met at the church heard the pastor's sermon, and I felt something that, you know, I never felt as a Buddhist. You know, it was it's hard to explain, but I'm guessing every Christian has felt something before, the presence of God, or you feel his handprint. And that's when I was like, you know what? Let me explore this a little bit more. I felt nothing with Buddhism. You know, I've always practiced and, you know, tried to seek what they call, you know, attainment, if you will. It just seemed like a far-fetched idea to me. But, you know, going to church and hearing the sermon and then doing the prayer at the end of the service, you know, and then you have to, like, you know, ask God to, you know, show you. I forget what the actual words was, but it's almost like a, you know, you know, releasing yourself and to God, you know, just let me know that you're there. And I felt something. And because of that, I wanted to dive in a little bit more. My OCD part of me is like, you know, let me learn and figure out this, because obviously there's something here that I need to, you know, dig a little deeper into. And that's when I, you know, really started getting into Christianity, learning about God, learning about Jesus, learning about, you know, the basic instructions before leaving Earth. And digesting that. And I want to say probably around 2002, 2003 that I accepted the Lord Jesus Christ as my savior. And I've been, man, blessed and saved ever since.
Interesting, because
but I still follow some precepts of Buddhism.
Yeah, definitely. And that's interesting because I understand too, like African spirituality and how that is expressed sometimes may be more in alignment with some of the Christian philosophies and how they conduct themselves and how they practice particular things, the emotion that they use to get to a certain place. You know what I mean? That's a little different than Buddhism and other practices that's made on just the silence almost, you know, the individuality and the silence, which is a lot different than our spiritualities where it's shouting, it's voodooism, it's all these different things, but it's expressions of hands and emotion. So that's interesting, bro, that you can even like see both angles, the dichotomy of Buddhism. Some black kids never, because I always tell people, Ron, I think it's healthy for a person seeking like to be spiritually correct. Maybe you should look into other like versions of spirituality, maybe Buddhism, look into it for a minute, look into Islam, look into Christianity. You never know what would align with your soul.
Man,
you see?
I didn't know about Islam until I was in, you know, federal lockup in San Bernardino. That Islam, the story is similar. Just there's a couple tangents, but it's almost similar to Christianity, especially when it talks about Abraham. Exact same story. But I, I was almost 30 years old by the time I was, doing that small little bid, because I was, waiting to be bailed out, and in federal, because in federal, you don't get bail. It's, you have to put up a bond, and my parents had to put up a bond for the home, and took, over 2 to 3 weeks. So they had to get it appraised and all that. But long story short, while I was in there, I was like, no, I gotta, use my time wisely. So after reading through the Bible, one of the brothers was talking about Islam. Is like, what, you don't know about Abraham? It's same story. I'm like, what? And yeah, so you're absolutely right. And being able to just get learned on different philosophies, and just to kind of, so that you're not in the closet on one particular philosophy. It's, you get to open your palette and actually get to relate with other philosophies. And you know what it all boils down to is love thyself, love thy neighbor, and making sure that you that you're seeking that spiritual growth, if you will. In all philosophies, it kind of boils
Very
down
similar.
to all that. Yep.
Yeah, man, we gotta. I look, man. I knowing about the history of some religions. When I began to learn about the history of some of these things, it would kind of piss me off a little bit. Looking at my family's history and how they've used some of these practices. But at the end of the day, I'm at a point now, Ron, where whatever you're using to make you a better person, because at the end of the day, just like you said, Ron, that's all we're seeking, bro. Be a good person. Treat people the right way. Don't lie to people. Be a just individual. Whatever can lead you there, I'm with you. I just don't like when people use religion at times as a means to get to a place financially, B, to mislead people. Like, I don't like how sometimes, like everything in our society, Ron, I don't like how things can be used as a tool to do things to people. And I think that's kind of what we all need to be on the lookout for as far as that's concerned. Now, you said there's going to be a second part to the book. What is the second part of the book going to be about?
So the second part of the book will cover essentially the raid and how we set up the dispensary, what, how it all culminated, and then ending up to the other side, if you will. Because when you open, or when you first start out in that book, it's supposed to smack you in the face and have you thinking like, wow, this dude is in deep.
Yeah. Now, so now you're able to practice law. Do you think, I'm not going to say, do you think it was worth it? But do you look at the path you got to becoming a lawyer, and do you think like maybe all that had to happen for you to get to where you are now?
Absolutely. One of the things that I'm very grateful when it comes to my training and experience as an attorney is to be able to analyze, things. So for example, when it comes to like politics, and because you did discuss religion, I think politics is the same thing, where we as a culture, as people, need to know, where did the Republican Party come from? Where did the Democrat Party come from? Who supported slavery? Who wanted to abolish slavery? Like, how did we get to where we are today?
Yes.
And I'm amazed at, how much people, our culture, don't even know these things. And so for me, I say that my training and experience as an attorney has allowed me to be able to dig a little deeper into these things where I was ignorant before, and I would throw my ignorance in the air and justify it and say, I'm reading what's going on today, or I'm hearing what's going on today, and screw everything that's happened in the past, because it's all about what's going on today. And it's, then you get, conversations and discussions where it's, didn't you know that the Democratic Party actually wanted to keep slavery in place and actually wanted to, did not want Black people to be a part of, society?
Yep, we were once Republicans. Yep.
And no, you would be amazed at how many Black people today don't know that, are unaware of that, or that the Republican Party was started to abolish slavery. That was one of the purposes of the Republican Party. And how did it get to where it is today? So for my, as you asked, like, going to law school and was it worth it? Was it a big waste of time? I would still be ignorant to a lot of the issues and things that are going on in our world today, had it not been for my training and instruction as an attorney, because it teaches you how to not just be surface on issues and with, our history. It really teaches you how to dig into the meat and potatoes and analyze and actually, pros and cons and get into the facts of things and not, just, fake news, if you will.
Definitely.
So absolutely, without my legal training, I'd be passing on more ignorance to my kids.
Definitely. And, it's funny you brought that up, Ron, because I'm just in general, brother. I'm such a big proponent of history. A part of what I do on my YouTube channel and all the social media accounts attached to this channel is I try, whenever I'm aware of things about history, because I read a lot of different books about things that have happened to us, how things got created, I share this information because for me, Ron, like being in the position that I'm at now where I want to educate my people and highlight things and celebrate us, the empowerment that's in my soul was created by reading about us, reading about the history. I read about the history and I say, wait a minute, you mean this been happening? You mean this system we're in, it's been the same way almost. It's just the past repeating itself. So this gives you a calm and an understanding to say, okay, when I read the news, it's unfortunate, but you're filtering. It's a filtering process.
Yes.
Like, okay, 100% information, 14% of it's real.
Yes.
See, I have to dig through. Okay, that's real. That's bullshit. They're lying right there. Some truth to that. I'll take that piece. I'll look that piece up. You see, it's difficult. That's why I try to create a platform where I'm honest, straightforward. Here's the information. Here's the tip of the iceberg. Take this. Go research yourself, because I always tell people you really don't learn until you dig in yourself. Somebody can tell you, hey, this happened there, that happened there. But until you pick your phone up and get to Googling and go down the rabbit hole of information to get to where you need to go, it's not as fulfilling. You know what I mean?
Yep. I was talking to a brother the other day, and we were talking about the Roe v. Wade and like how big of a controversy that is right now.
Yes.
And I was like, man, did you hear what one of the justices said? It's like I'm like, and he's a brother too. He's like, what? Like, we got a brother on the, like, yeah. I mean, Clarence Thomas, did you know there was a brother before him? Thurgood Marshall? Like, it's appalling that our own people don't know. Like some of these, like, to me, I can't say that my own ignorance, that I probably wouldn't know, had I not gone to law school, and that I would know, the Supreme Court Justice, Clarence Thomas. But I think, this affects us as a culture, as a people, and what we've built, as far as on our backs, with this country, and for a Supreme Court justice to say, hey, whatever comes out of Supreme Court, y'all just must accept it. Like, what? Wait a minute. So you can just go stick your head in the sand, and your wife can send text messages about, the Capitol insurrection, and then you get to rule on those cases. Like, this is like, to me, it's I'm like, my jaw is dropping. Like, why is it that there's not more attention and focus from our community on, on these types of things that are going on that affect our country and the future of our country? So, but that's a whole nother podcast.
No, but you're right, Ron, because I think sometimes we've been so shut out.
Say that again.
We've been so shut out of things just systematically that sometimes we've gotten to the point where it's like, why even bother?
Mhm.
They're gonna make decisions that affect me. I'm black. I'm not a large percentage in this country. They've done a lot of things to suppress my vote. They've done
Yeah.
things to suppress my voice. So some of us say, man, fuck it. I'm not gonna deal with it at all. When in actuality, we all know that to make a change, I always preach, Ron, if you want to make a change in your neighborhood, in your city, in your community, it all starts with you. Like you
Yes.
can look outside of yourself at politics in the political landscape around you. That's one thing. But looking inside of you and say, boom, how can I help? That's actually the first step. Because if, and I'm never going to take this back, if you go and all you do is place your vote in a ballot and go back to living your day-to-day life, I'm not sure how much you just helped out. You may need to go to the local politics. You may need to go to some of these meetings, like these town hall meetings. Some of us don't know, because I know sometimes we don't know the jargon and like the language they're speaking, but some of these things are open to the public.
Yep.
Like anybody can go. I was speaking to the mayor. I interviewed the mayor of Central Heights, California. She's a sister. Central Heights is a small suburb outside of Sacramento. I didn't even know they had a mayor. This is part of the ignorance we was just talking about.
Wow.
I found out there was a mayor of this city. I contacted her. We interviewed. This is a sister, like pushing for our liberation. But she says, hey, I can make decisions, but for one, I got to get a lot of white men to agree with me. She didn't say it this way. I'm saying it this way. Yep. I got to get a lot of white men around me to agree with me. It's just me amongst a sea of other people. Yep. And then I need people to show up. When I say, hey, this is a community issue, I need people to show up at the meetings and say, yep, she's right. It's an issue because I experienced it last week on the 27th. I have documentation. And I was like, damn, this is my ignorance being like, because a part of me was like, I don't want to deal with politics. I don't want to deal with politicians. I don't trust them. This sister is saying, nah, I'm actually with you. I just took this position thinking it was going to be a little easier to fight for you guys. And it's not, but I'm here and I need your help. You know what I mean?
And you made an excellent point. And this is one of the things that I just sent this out a group message to my partners and, to my kids. When I read it, I mean, when you said it, it brought that quote back to me. If you work hard at a job, you will make a lot of money. If you work hard on yourself, you will make a fortune. Mm-hmm. And that goes back to your point of working on yourself and not being ignorant and being educated. Mm-hmm. Because once you get in a position where you can actually make a difference, it's not going to be because of what everyone else is doing. It's going to be what you're doing. Yeah. So I wholeheartedly completely agree with that statement and what you just said, as far as, we have to work on ourselves. You got to be, otherwise you're just going to remain ignorant and you got to be a perpetual learner. And that's another thing with Black people, with men, even myself, when I finish, my undergrad, I'm done. I don't have to, we've reached the top of the mountain. Nah, it's you just beginning. Yeah. Just beginning. And even when I got my law license, I was like, man, I've made it. Ain't nothing to do after this. And then I got that first lawsuit. So yeah, work on yourself and
yourself and adults. Because, I had another sister on the show who's like a romance concierge, and she just helped couples with relationship advice and date night and stuff. And she was just making points about a lot of men and women, because we're adults, we think we know how to do something. Mm-hmm. And in actuality, we could have just been doing something wrong for a lot of years. Yep. Some people you shouldn't hesitate to Google something simple. Like, how do I do this? You may feel kind of dumb, but it's going to lead you down a rabbit hole of you understanding, damn, there's a philosophy and there's an actual way to do this. This is with everything. You don't just put brakes on a car. You have to learn about it, and there's a little instruction manual. I think that's with everything, with relating to your wife, sexual interactions, being there for your kids. Nothing is just simple. You know what I mean?
I always tell my oldest, because I can't say it to my young ones, there's levels to this shit.
All day, and in every interaction, in every people interaction, you can become really good at it if you just study it and back up and look at all the dynamics and see where it's going. You can get better at anything, but being stuck in your ways, because they always say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I don't believe that.
I don't
As long
believe
as
it
the
either.
old dog want to learn some new tricks, you can teach him some new tricks.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Analogy. I got this little, because I do workout, and I got this little thing that's supposed to help you do perfect push-ups. Man, Harrison, I've been doing push-ups wrong for 40 years. I didn't even know.
See?
I'm like, man, just up and down, up and down. This band like had my chest all constricted, arms close up. I thought I could knock out an easy 100. I barely got the 20. So you hit the nail right on the head. If you aren't, elevating yourself, going to that next level, being a perpetual learner, man, you're just going to be that, that ignorant, what do you call it? That stereotype,
Yes.
that they
Yes.
typecast and label us as.
Yes.
We dumb and we don't know shit.
Yep.
Like, man,
Yep.
well, because you didn't allow me to learn anything, and you kept me from, acquiring any, knowledge and experience. And when I did acquire any knowledge and experience, you tried to take it away from me. You tried to, stop my family from being able to prosper. So yeah, it's definitely.
And both things exist. People, because I talk a lot on my platform, Ron, about racism. I talk a lot about accountability. I think both of these things can exist. Yes, the system has done something to today. Still, people like to tell me, we ain't slaves no more. Racism was or slavery was a long time ago. No, slavery's still legal now. If you go to jail, our neighborhoods are being gentrified. This system is at work right now today, right?
Yep.
But it becomes a point. What are you gonna do? You can talk about it. You need to, because we need to speak truth to power. But you have a level of accountability you can tap into. See, it's not an excuse or saying I'm a victim, like a victimhood mentality, by saying no. There's a system. The crack epidemic affected my family directly. My brothers, my uncles, my cousins. Today, still, they're affected by these 3 strikes laws and how this today still, right?
Yep.
So this system affected my family, but I gotta sit back and say, okay, boom, what am I gonna do?
Yep.
I can't just make an excuse and say they affected my family. Now I can't be nothing. No. I'm gonna learn it. It's like learning how to drive somewhere. You can avoid the potholes. You can avoid where it's gonna be an accident. It's the avoiding it and using it as a source of empowerment. Like, we've done some great things in this country and abroad. We've done some great things. You got to tap into that.
Yep.
They know. See, they know who you are.
Yep.
You don't know who you are. You know what I mean?
And that's from my legal practice is trying to provide pro bono services. Because the access to justice in our community is abysmal, notwithstanding that there's not that many Black attorneys. And so the access to justice is just, the gap is so wide. So because my day job, I'm a corporate lawyer. So my technology background, it's what I do on the day-to-day is making sure that, businesses, they don't get hacked or have issues, from a compliance perspective, so I do keep businesses out of litigation. That's my day job as an attorney. But my passion is pro bono law for undervalued, underprivileged, underserved communies. So from adoptions to DUIs, you name it. I was harassed at a store, and I don't even know if it was racism or not. I look at all those types of cases, and I don't charge for those types of cases because of, this is the this is what I can do, my contributions to our community, and help others to learn and to pay it forward, and just to elevate, our community and our people.
That's what it's about, Ron. That's, to me, bro, that's the hopes of all of our professional Black people. Like that's my hopes for all of us, to get to a position of influence where you can leverage your influence in what you've become to help us. Yep. It's easy. Like I was saying earlier, you could just go vote, Ron. You could just say, I'm gonna vote and hope that they help me out sometime. But you saying, nah, I'm gonna put my feet to the fire, because we know when the public pretenders, they make it difficult. A lot of our brothers is in jail. They ain't had that bail money. The public defender working with the judge, they just came from lunch together and decided your fate. They decided your fate over lunch, and now it's just now it's just they're just going through the motions right now. You know what I mean?
You called one of my chapters in the upcoming book Public Pretender, and that's literally. And what you just described is all in that chapter.
And it's unfortunate, just because you didn't have money, you couldn't fight it. Now you're doing 15 years, and then you take that deal. Everybody think that deal was the best. Yep. Sometimes it ain't. Sometimes if you would have fought it, they didn't want to spend the money to go through all the process of you fighting it. But sometimes if you fight it, you know what I mean? It may fare better for you, but they want you to take that deal.
Oh, it's always if you lose, you could get worse. My public pretender told me, you got 40 years. If you fight it, you might get 50. But if you take the plea, you'll get 10. Yep. Like Harrison, who doesn't go for that?
Who in their right mind, in these cold ass walls, this stanky outfit I got on, I want out of here.
Man.
Yeah, okay, where?
Man, where do I sign?
Where? Come on now.
And
you know what I mean?
And that's what I'm trying to make a dent, make an impact on, if you will.
Yes, so that's definitely necessary, brother. So Ron, I appreciate you chopping it up with me today, man. This is what we need, brother.
Yes,
like your mission. I'm here to tell you, man, keep on going, because I know a lot of times too, just helping people is a thankless job at times. Like being in a position where you just want to help somebody and you have a good spirit and want to help out. Sometimes it's a thankless job. Sometimes it's sometimes sometimes you're not compensated for it. Sometimes you don't feel appreciated. But this is the work, though.
Yes.
Like if you really want to help people and make a difference in this world, sometimes it's lonely, it's thankless. You don't feel rewarded, but somebody got to do it. You know what I mean?
Harrison, I think I could be spending 40 years in federal penitentiary in, I think it was Salinas or Petaluma or somewhere here in some federal penitentiary in California. So whenever those thoughts cross my head, I'm like, thank you, God.
There you go.
So grateful. This is so thankless, but it could be much worse.
It could be much worse. And how many brothers do we know that are in the penitentiary who are smart? If you sat down and talked to them, nothing criminal, you would feel no criminal nature about them. They're smart, they're educated. One day they made a mistake. One phone call, one car ride, one little small mistake. Boom. Now they in here with every type of criminal in the world. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That happens. That happens.
Yes. Well, have you ever seen the show Rock?
No.
Man, because you 40, so I figured,
Rock. Back in the day, Rock.
Yeah, ROC.
Yeah.
ROC. Charles S. Dutton.
Yeah.
Yes. With his brother Joey. Okay. So what a lot of people don't know, and what I just learned myself, he did 10 years in prison.
Charles Dutton did?
Charles Dutton did 10 years in prison in Baltimore. Came out and got his bachelor's in acting, then went and did a few stints and acting gigs and what have you. And man, it came out with his own show. So these are you didn't even know that. A lot of people don't know that. And this is, our own people, a black man who went to prison and with a bunch of other, really bad people. And came out and made a huge difference. And so perseverance. And so that, I try to highlight, stories like that, not just my own, but there's tons of others. But I highlight my own because, Charles Dutton's, 10 years my senior. And so folks that, if you're a millennial or if you're, on the cusp of Gen Z, you'll read my story and be like, damn, okay, I can relate to this.
There we go, brother. So again, Ron, I appreciate having you on the show, man. Once the second part of the book drops, I want to have you back so we can continue this conversation. So it was really, really good having you on the show. Everybody, please go pick up a copy of The Audacity of Dope and Perseverance. The book is available now, right, Ron?
That's correct. Yep.
Yes.
Get it at your favorite Amazon website.
Yes, go pick up a copy of the book. So again, I thank everybody for tuning into another episode of the Melanated Convo podcast. Please go to the YouTube page, the Melanated Convo, subscribe, all the digital platforms. I'm there. Continue to like and share all the emails and the conversations that people start around what I do. I appreciate it. So again, the brother Ron Naulls blessed us with his presence today. I appreciate you coming on the show, brother.
Man,
this has
Harrison,
been
appreciate you too, man.
Definitely. Now tell everybody where they can reach you. Do you like your social media or anything like that?
Man, I'm off the grid, but I'm on LinkedIn. When it comes to Instagram and Snap, like I'm off the grid. I mean, I'm an IT guy, I'm a lawyer, so I got I'm in the cut. But LinkedIn, I'm definitely active on LinkedIn. I'm Twitter at Ron Naulls on Twitter as well. But man, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm glad to connect back and partner with folks online. Absolutely.
Definitely. But don't worry, Ron. I'm gonna make some clips of the show. I'm gonna have you on Instagram a little bit, have you on Facebook a little bit. You know what I mean? Respectfully, though. You know what I mean?
I appreciate it.
Just telling your story. Definitely. Well, everybody, thank you very much for tuning in to another episode of the Melanated Convo podcast. This is your brother Harrison.